Since joining the border patrol, I've been having nightmares. This seemed like the only place I could talk about it. In the last one, I'm tracking somebody through the desert on a moonless night. My flashlight chases 2 pairs of footsteps until I get to a clearing. Then, the tracks end in the middle of the dirt. It doesn't make sense, but maybe the wind blew them away, or they were abducted by aliens. Or maybe it's an ambush. Unsettled, I start to head back, but then I trip on something in the dark dirt. My head hits the ground, and my flashlight flies into the brush away from me. As I try to get up, there's this resistance on my neck. I strain to lift my head, and the resistance becomes a force, a pull. Finally, I see an ashy hand tugging at my collar, and it wants me to join it in the dirt. That's when I wake up and see it's just Steve pulling at my collar. Steve's my journeyman. We're at a port of entry on the US-Mexico border, watching their live feeds all night. I must have fallen asleep. "Look alive, Dom. We got bogeys." He points at a drone video feed, and I see a man, a woman, and a child at the fence. The man cuts a hole in it, while the woman watches. The kid just sort of stares into the blackness. As I try to figure him out, he turns to the camera. Maybe it's because of the nightmare, but his blank face, quivering with black and white pixels, looks like a nest of worms to me. We hit the road, tracking the sensor hits to our bogeys. Steve's been pissed at me ever since I put in my transfer to the asylum office, and the chief gave us midnights as punishment. Finally, he breaks the silence. "You know, you'll do a lot more good out here than sitting at a desk," he says. "I know, man, I know. So why quit?" he asks. And now it's my turn to be mum. I'm not going to tell him about the nightmares and the guilt. When I told you I worked for Border Patrol, you probably imagined I was some racist white guy with a mustache. Actually, I'm Latino, so the guilt is 10 times worse. "Is this about the guy we found?" he presses. The guy is a migrant who ran out of water and drank his own piss for 5 days until his kidneys gave out. "Nah, man, it's not that. I got a girl up in Tucson and I want to be closer to her." "Shoulda known," he smirks. "You're a pussy for pussy." He swerves off the road and onto the dirt. We're headed straight for the border now, when the sensor hit stops moving. I rub my eyes to make sure it really wasn't moving. Midnights haven't been kind to me. My nightmares seem to blend into reality. We track it to a spot 2 miles from the border. There's a body there, collapsed in the dirt. Steve and I bolt out of the car. Flipping the body over, it looks like the guy has been mauled by an animal. Deep gashes run down from his face and chest, spilling sticky and glistening black blood onto the ground. A bloody hunting knife rests in the dirt beside him that he probably used to defend himself. "Mountain lion?" I ask Steve. He shines his light on the man's face, punctured with deep and violent stabs. "Something bigger than that," he says. Steve traces a path with his torch from the body to find 2 pairs of footprints running into the brush. A nauseating deja vu bubbles up inside of me. It looks exactly like my nightmare. Steve tries to radio, but all he gets is static. "Let's hang back and call the cavalry," he says. "There could be people hurt up there." I shoot back. I don't wait for his response. I have enough corpses on my conscience. so I drop my weapon and head into the brush. Steve follows behind. It's in there, where I can't see more than a few feet ahead of me, that I feel what it's like to be hunted. Not by an animal, but something worse. Something that puts my hair on edge. It's just karma, I think to myself. And the feeling passes as we emerge. Our flashlights chase up the footprints to converge on two figures huddled under a palo verde tree. It's a mother clutching her injured child. And thankfully, they don't run as we approach. The kid looks in bad shape. His shirt is covered in blood, and he has a glassy deadness in his eyes. "Does your boy need medical attention?" I asked the terrified woman in Spanish. "No, he's fine. Just scared," she replies in English. "Do you have any weapons on you?" Steve barks. "No, nothing," she says. "Search them," he orders me. "I'm going to try and call this in." He steps away while I search and question the mom. Her name is Alma. She's from Nogales and ran away when a gang tried to kill her 11-year-old son Kwang. Examining the boy, I find the telltale bruises of a gang initiation and a tattoo peeking out from his sleeve. I hike it up a little to get a better look. It's a gothic cursive M that ends in a coiled devil's tail. I've seen it many times before. It's the sign Las Maras, the ultimate bad hombres. They're the guys who tear up their entire bodies with guns and skulls and demons. No wonder the poor kid looks like he's seen the devil. It's because he has. The boy pulls away from me and hugs his mom. "We want asylum," she implores me. "We can talk about that back at the station." I point to the brush. "Can you tell me who the dead man is over there?" "He was our coyote." "What happened to him?" Alma clams up. Finally, she says, "An animal got him." "What kind of animal?" Before she can answer, Steve returns with a bewildered look on his face. "Dumb, come listen to this." He twists the dial on his radio. It sounds like static to me, so I turn it up to the max. Just above the hiss, I can hear a man whispering. His words are lispy and don't sound like anything I've heard before. His breathless delivery sends a chill down my spine. Any idea what language that is? Pima? I offer. We're not far from the Tohonores. Well, here's the only signal I can get out here. You mean you can't reach the station? Now, my chill is cresting into panic. No, Steve says gravely. Maybe someone's jamming us. The cartels have gotten pretty high-tech, and we're setting ducks out here. We both look at Alma and Kwang with renewed suspicion. I bind their wrists with pull-string handcuffs. Then we hike back to our car as fast as we can. The wind has picked up in a full howl, half covering the dead coyote in dirt. I help Alma and Kwang into the back while Steve starts the car. What about the body? I ask. Leave it for tribal police, he says while he struggles with the GPS on the dash. This fucking thing can't find us. Let me see. I fiddled with the settings. But all I get is a blank map and the message, GPS signal not found. The headlights of our vehicle beam pathetically into the darkness, so maybe we see 30 feet of dirt. Without our GPS, we might as well be on the moon. Try restarting the car, I suggest. I'll try my phone. I pull up the Maps app, and I get the same message. No signal. I even stick the phone out the window, but still nothing. Nothing on my phone either. What about you? Steve bangs on the dash in frustration. Nothing. Maybe the satellite is down. GPS is the US military, so unless World War III just started, then it's not the fucking satellite. Is everything okay? Alma asks from the back. Everything's okay, I say. Then why aren't we going? We need you to be quiet, ma'am. Steve snaps. What is the problem? Are we in danger? She insists, growing anxious. We have it under control. Now, I need you to calm down. Steve orders. As they argue, I try to de-escalate the situation, but Huang seems completely numb to our conversation. He just stares ahead, past us. Suddenly, his eyes go wide. He points forward and screams. I whip my head to look out the front of our vehicle. What I see is more terrifying than any of my nightmares. I will do my best to describe it. It looks like a large tumbleweed bouncing across our headlights. But it's not a tumbleweed. It's too big, too round, and too black. Even though the light hits it dead on, it's pure black. And its outline isn't a perfect circle either. It quivers like it has hundreds of tiny hairs on it. You know, in high school biology, they would show you what a virus looks like close up. That's what it looks like, except big enough to swallow you whole. At least, that's what I think it looks like. I can only see it for a few seconds before it bounces into the darkness. Did you see that? I shout. See what? Steve asks me, scared. Just drive. The car lurches forward. As we barrel away, Alma clutches her son and whimpers a prayer in Spanish. I check behind us, but I can't see anything other than desert. My heartbeat lowers, and I can finally think clearly. Was it all in my head? Then I remember going camping with my mom. She taught me how to navigate with the stars, and seeing the stars is one of the only things I like about this job. So, we managed to follow the North Star to the road. Back at the station, I process Alma and Huang and take their fingerprints. The mysterious horror of the desert feels like a distant memory, washed away by the everyday horror of our bureaucracy. But I've been numb to that for a long time now. I bring Alma and Huang into Steve's office. They sit across from him, and I close the door. He takes a freshly printed document from his laser jet and starts a pitch I've heard 100 times before. I'm not sure you've heard about our procedure, but I want to be 100% honest with you, because the next decisions you make will have a big impact on you and your family. Now, are you comfortable with English, or do you want Agent Lopez to translate? English, Alma says, and I'm relieved. I hate this next part. Excellent. This is a temporary detention facility. In a few days, you'll be transferred to another larger facility to await trial. Your son will not be transferred with you, because we are not allowed to hold him in detention. I will allow it. She interrupts. Please let me finish everything I have to say. Steve says sharply. I will get to your choices at the end. Do you understand? Yes. As I was saying, your son will not be transferred with you. You have committed a crime against the United States, and we prosecute every case without exception. The penalties are severe if you are found guilty. You can get up to 6 months jail time, after which you and your son will be deported and barred from legally re-entering the United States. But we want to apply for asylum. Yes, you can apply, but the odds of getting it are very low. Do you remember how many people get asylum from Mexico, Agent Lopez? Between 2 and 3%. Tears start to well up in her eyes. Steve is an excellent agent, and he knows how to use my good cop vibe to break people. Now, he goes in for the kill. But there is a way to avoid all this, he says as he pushes forward a document with all the grace of a Vegas magician. It basically says you volunteer to leave the United States. You sign this, and we take you to a hotel tonight and put you on a plane tomorrow. You won't have anything on your record, and you can still apply for asylum legally at a port of entry. We tried in Nogales, but they sent us back. We're working through the backlog as fast as we can. It won't be any better here. She pushes the contract back. We can't go back. They will kill my son. Steve maintains his smile, but now it has a sardonic hint. You're very tired. Take a night to sleep on it, and you can tell me your final decision in the morning. He nods to me. Agent Lopez will take you to your cell. I escort them down a hallway filled with cells. They're all packed with migrants, but the last one only houses one other middle-aged woman, Maria. Even though it's 2 a.m., she's still up. We found her in the desert a few days ago, trying to bury her husband's body. They came all the way from Guatemala and couldn't keep up with their coyote, so he cut them loose. Her husband gave her the last of their water, but then she couldn't bear to leave him when he died. Now, she sits on the bench and prays quietly on her rosary. I was raised Catholic. The desert convinced me there's no God out here, but I'm not so sure about the devil. I hand Alma a pair of mylar blankets for their bedding and open the cell. Juan refuses to go in. He doesn't say anything and just plants himself firmly into the concrete floor. Alma argues with him, then pushes him with all her might. But he doesn't budge. He just stares at Maria as she utters, "El Señor es mi pastor, nada me faltará. En lugares de verdes pastos me hace descansar." And that's when Juan starts to hiss. Maria stops her prayer and turns around, white in the face. Her sudden silence suits him, but Alma isn't relieved. Fear creeps into her eyes as she escorts him inside. I help Alma make a bed for Juan, then I close the cell. On the other side of the bars, she talks to me in Spanish. "Do you like what you do?" Her question catches me off guard. So, I answer honestly, "No." "Then, why do you do it?" "Because my mom's sick. She has cancer. This is the best job for Miles." "I see." "Do you think I'm a monster?" I blurt out. "It doesn't matter," she says. "I commit a crime because my son will die. And you commit a crime because your mother will die. There is no real choice when your family is in danger." I turn to leave, unable to bear any more shame in front of her. But she calls to me again. "But I have a choice. Should I take the deal?" I freeze. This isn't in Steve's script. I already feel so much guilt for my decisions that the weight of others will crush me. "Forget it." Her eyes sink to the ground, and she turns to rejoin her son. I watch her crawl into her mylar blanket and close her eyes as Maria starts to pray again. Juan lies on the ground, but doesn't sleep. He just glares at Maria with a snake-like hatred in his eyes. A part of me wonders if he'll hiss again, or do something worse. I get home around 4 a.m., pop some Ambien, and get into bed. It's hard to fall asleep. There's another dead body seared into my memory. This one disemboweled by a black sphere of death. But then, I feel a delicious buzz flood my brain. My mind finally stops racing. I can close my eyes. And that's when I hear it. A hiss. It's coming from under the bed. At first, I don't think it's real. I'm dreaming, and like a dream, I'm not in control of my own body. I hang my head over the bed to look underneath. Down there, something slithers in the darkness. Hissing again. It sounds just like one. So now I know I must be dreaming. The black, quivering mass moves towards me, and suddenly I'm face to face with a snake. It bares its fangs, and it takes every survival instinct in my brainstem to pull me away from its bite. I watch the snake slither out from under my bed. It silently moves across the room, through the open screen door, to the outside. Here's the part that terrifies me. I can't tell the difference between my nightmares and my life anymore. My next shift starts on a high note. Midnights suck all the energy and purpose out of you. But tonight, I race to work because I have a radical idea on how to cure my nightmares. And it's not Ambien or alcohol. The only way I can ease my guilt is to start doing things I can be proud of. So I march straight to Alma's cell and tell her not to take our deal. Her reaction isn't what I'm expecting. Is this another trick? She asks suspiciously. Look, asylum isn't as impossible as my partner made it out to be. I keep my voice down so Maria from Guatemala can't hear me. It's only 9 p.m, but she's already asleep at the end of the cell. Juan has crumbled up his crackers and now lines up the pieces on the floor. They surround Maria like a border, separating her from the rest of the room. He hums some children's tune that gives me chill. I think you could have a case with Juan. He's been through a lot. But your partner said he would separate us if we applied. That's not necessarily the case. So there's no chance you would take my son away? His humming gets louder and louder behind her. I can't say for sure. Alma grows angry. How can you say you're the law here if you don't even know the rules? The rules change week to week, I say, too loudly, and Maria stirs. Truth is, it depends on who's processing your case and who's the supervisor. I'm training to be an asylum officer, and I can tell you there's space for interpretation. And Alma? Yes? Please don't tell anyone I spoke about this with you. As she chews over my words, a deep chuckle interrupts us from the back of the cell. It's Maria. Her body quivers as she rolls over to face us. But her head stays locked to the wall, so I can't see her face. Her arm seizes upwards with its wrist bent at an unnatural angle, and poor Juan scurries back towards us. Suddenly, her giggling stops, and we all stare at her in silent terror. That's when Maria's head whips around to face us. The vessels in her eyes have burst, and she leers at us with blood-red rage. Alma screams as Maria breaks into a full seizure. I struggle to get the cell door open while her legs and arms fly in every direction, scattering Juan's crackers all over the floor. "Stay back!" I shout as I try to keep Maria from the wall. Up close, I can see deep red lesions mark her face and arms. Her flying leg pushes me back, and she slips out of my arms. With a final forceful twitch, her head snaps into the wall. She's dead. I spend the rest of my shift talking to the CDC. It feels like something out of a zombie movie. Men in hazmat suits come and quarantine the cell and keep us in isolation. It's not a new feeling for me. This place is mostly a prison after all. But this time, I'm on the other side of the bars. Steve and the other agents look at me now like I'm the interloper, bringing strange disease and danger from distant shores into their lives. I sit in silence with Alma, Juan, and Maria's dead body while the CDC makes their assessment. Juan doesn't seem too bothered. I catch him playing with Maria's stiff fingers. He whispers to her as if she was a doll. And I swear, I see her lips twitch. Was she settling into rigor mortis? Or was she whispering back? Finally, as the sun rises, The CDC clears us all for release. They think Maria got dengue fever from a mosquito on her way over the border, and her symptoms were interpreted as other signs of dehydration and heat stroke. Dengue is not contagious, but it's possible that she was bit by other mosquitoes in our facility that could transfer it to others. They tell us to report any signs of fever in ourselves, our co-workers, or our detainees. Then, they pack up Maria's body and leave. Before I clock out, the chief calls me into his office. Steve's there, and they both still look at me like I'm not one of them anymore. "How are you feeling?" the chief asks. He's first-generation Mexican-American like my mom, in case you guys thought that only white people were the problem here. When it comes to the border, we're all complicit. Midnights have been rough. It was your decision to leave us. So, what were you doing in Alma's cell last night? He asks, and I stiffen up. She wanted to talk about Maria. And you didn't talk about anything else? Nope. And why didn't she tell anyone on the afternoon shift? Why did she wait to tell you? I don't know, I say, and the chief raises his eyebrows incredulously. I had to give him more. It's possible she trusts me more. I think Agent Johnson's interrogation shook her up a little bit. That's bullshit. Steve erupts from the corner of the room. The chief raises his arm to silence Steve. It's funny you mentioned that, because Alma informed us today that she wants to apply for asylum. She was about to sign. He must have talked to her. Steve presses. I did not. I want to think that's the case, Agent Lopez. I gave USCIS my full recommendation for your transfer, and I hope I didn't make a mistake. You didn't. Then, I need you to demonstrate that to me. I want you to conduct their asylum interview here. What? I ask, surprised. Why me? The asylum office is backed up with interviews for a month, and because of last night's excitement, ICE refuses to take Alma or Juan until they get a full CDC report. Who knows when that'll be? So, it's our problem, and we just aren't equipped to keep them long term. They need to be out of here ASAP, but as long as they have a pending asylum claim, we can't deport them. He leans in and grins at me. And that's where you come in, to solve the problem. Before the interview, I try to grab a couple hours sleep in an empty conference room. The blinds can keep off the light completely, so I struggle to fall asleep in my office chair. My heavy eyes wander around until they land in the darkness corner of the room, a place where even the intense Sonoran sun can't reach. And there's someone in the corner, staring at me. He takes a step forward out of the blackness, and I see he's naked with dark and cracked skin like beef jerky. His eyes are clouded white, and at first, I don't recognize this man. Until he opens his mouth, and a waterfall of urine falls from it onto the carpet. Now I remember him. He drank his own urine for 5 days until we found him. A knock on the door wakes me up. The room's empty, and I spring up and open the blinds just to be sure. There's no one there, but a large wet spot stains the carpet where the man was standing. I sniff, and it smells like piss. Real strong. The knock on the door gets louder, so I don't have time to investigate. I open the door, and a junior agent enters with Alma and Juan. Do you smell anything? I ask him. Like what? I don't know, something bad. They all look at me like I'm crazy. Never mind, probably something from outside. You can close the door. He leaves. I set up Juan with some crayons and paper, and Alma takes a seat across from me. So, you're doing our asylum application? She asks, relieved. Yes. I turn on a video camera behind me. Please be aware that this interview is being recorded. Okay, she says, struck by my sudden formality. The purpose of this interview is to establish your credible fear of persecution or torture. It is important that you tell the truth. Everything you say will be available to an immigration judge if your asylum claim goes forward. Do you understand? Yes. Okay, good. So, what do you think will happen to you if you return home? They will kill my son. Who? Las Maras Salvatruchas. It's a bad gang. And why do they want to kill him? He was in a rival gang. Which one? I interrupt her. Los Aztecas, she answers, and I scribble down the information in my notepad. It's not starting well. To get asylum, your persecution must be based on one of 5 reasons: your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or social group. Being in a gang isn't one of them. But it wasn't his choice. He was forced to join them, she adds, pleadingly. Okay. I add another note. How do you know they're going to kill him? I saw it. You were there? They kidnapped him, but I found out from a neighbor where they went. So I got a gun from a contrabandista and I went to rescue him. Her throat stiffens as she continues. They had him tied up on the ground, and one was going to cut him open with a knife. I screamed at them to stop. When they saw I had a gun, they let us go. I finish scribbling notes on her incredible story. Maybe too incredible. How many Maras were in there with Juan? I ask. 4. And they didn't have weapons? One had a knife, the one that was going to cut Juan. So what were the other 3 doing? I'm not sure. Where were they in the room? On the ground. Doing what? I don't know. So this is a gang safe house, but nobody has guns, and most of the crew is taking a nap. You'll never believe me if I tell you, she shouts and breaks into tears. It's devastating to know I brought her to this point, and I'm just glad the camera can't see the guilt on my face. Behind her on the floor, Juan pauses his furious drawing and stares at his weeping mother. I push a box of tissues to her. Thank you, she manages. I know how you feel. I've seen some terrible things out there, things that normal people wouldn't believe. But we're not normal people, are we? We're border people. We live in the space between normal. She dabs her eyes and composes herself. Then, I ask again. What were the Maras doing when you found Juan? They were praying. Praying? To Satan, she says quietly, as if the words themselves were dangerous. I suddenly feel sick to the pit of my stomach. Not because I believe her, but because poor Alma just torpedoed any chance she and Juan had of staying here. I think that's all I need, Alma. You don't believe me, she says, panicked. I go to turn off the camera before she makes herself sound crazier. They were chanting in Latin. They were going to cut him open. I want to believe you, but I have to review the evidence. I open the door and tell the junior agent that he can take them back to the cell. Alma pulls Juan up, scattering his drawings on the floor. You have to believe me. We can't go back, she pleads as the agent escorts them outside. I don't have the heart to respond. I stand in the room for a while, listening to their steps disappear in the hall. Then, when the silence becomes overwhelming, I start to tidy up the room. Eventually, I pick up Juan's pictures off the ground. In the first, Juan has drawn a child in the center of a red pentagram with heavy crayon strokes. 3 black blobs surround it, and another lords over it like a shadow that sharpens into a knife point. But this is the stuff you see in horror movies all the time, I tell myself. This is something Alma could have taught him to do for a gullible border agent. But for the next picture, I have no explanation. I can only describe it as the face of a yellow man who spits an arm out of his mouth and wears a crown of feathers. The drawing is crude, but not like a child would make. It's crude in an ancient way, like an Aztec painting or the wall of an Egyptian tomb. Something deep in my gut says that Juan didn't draw this. It feels older than this building, older than the border. It feels like it was always here. The sun sets outside my office, and I've officially been up for 24 hours. I try my best with the report, but there aren't too many ways to spin a satanic gang ritual into grounds for asylum. The best I can do is suggest that it could be a type of religious persecution, if it is true. There's no evidence to back up Alma's story, so I have no choice but to reject her application. Well, almost no evidence. Juan's yellow demon glares at me from their open file on my desk. His crayon skin shimmers under the fading light. I decide to sleep on the final decision. So, I turn off my computer screen. There, in the blackness of the LCD, I see my own reflection. But there's something behind me. A towering yellow man with a crown of feathers raises a scepter above my head. It is a severed arm, and I know it's really there, because I can feel its finger tickle my hair. I spin around, and the room is empty. I march through the hall to the lobby, paranoid that some new nightmare will rob me of my desperately needed sleep. And that's when I hear it. A scream. A scream comes from the detention beds. I freeze in place, worried that maybe no one hears it but me. To my dark relief, a junior agent runs down the hall and I follow him. Another scream pierces the air, and this one I recognize. It's Alma. We stop at her cell as she cries out for help. She cradles Juan in her arms, his skin damp in a sickly yellow color, and calls out for help.